You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
We've analyzed just a staggering volume of threat data this week. If it feels like keeping up with new vulnerabilities is like drinking from a fire hose, you are absolutely not wrong.
Yeah, it's just relentless. And, what's really shocking is how often the biggest breaches, they don't even require some kind of zero-day, super sophisticated attack.
Exactly. It's that constant duality, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do, right? We look at these incidents not just as a laundry list of failures, but as patterns.
To understand why things are breaking.
Precisely. And this exploration really shows that tension between, the simplest human mistakes and these brand new, really cutting-edge AI-driven evasion tactics.
Well, let's start with that massive gap then, the catastrophic misconfiguration trend. Because when a giant like EY accidentally leaves a mountain of data exposed, it forces everyone to admit the basics are still collapsing.
The scope of that EY exposure is, well, it's frankly stunning. They left a gigantic, unencrypted SQL Server backup file.
How big are we talking?
Over 4 terabytes.
Yeah.
Just publicly accessible online. All because a cloud bucket was misconfigured.
4 terabytes of a backup just sitting there.
And that backup contained the crown jewels. We're talking highly sensitive stuff like API keys, passwords, credentials.
Wow.
And while they did address it quickly once they were told, the fact that this volume of privileged information was accessible from a simple config error, it's a huge warning shot.
It proves the point, right? Configuration is the new perimeter.
Yeah.
But that that security laziness, it isn't just limited to the corporate heavyweights.
Oh, not at all. It's everywhere.
It's enabling these huge failures in, basic infrastructure.
Look at the sheer absurdity of that cybercrime ring recently busted in India. They compromised 80 different CCTV dashboards.
80?
80. Across schools, hospitals, even private homes. In 20 states. And how'd they get in?
Let me guess. A default password?
You got it. They were all using the default, which was admin123.
It is just infuriating that admin123 still enables compromises at this scale. I mean, we've been warning people about this stuff since the start of the internet.
And that scale reminds us that, even if your house is in order, your vendor's house might be on fire.
That's the definition of a supply chain risk.
Exactly. It only takes one flaw in one popular tool to put hundreds of thousands of people at risk.
Which is precisely what happened with WordPress, right? That vulnerability in the post-SMTP plugin. It's affecting over 400,000 sites right now. That's a massive blast radius.
It is. This flaw lets an attacker view password reset emails. And once you can see that, you basically have a golden key to take over the account.
So the takeaway is pretty clear.
Immediate. Patching to version 3.6.1 isn't just optional, it's critical.
So on one side, we're still fighting these inexcusable human errors. But on the flip side, the attackers who aren't relying on default passwords, they're pioneering tools that, frankly, we thought were still years away. And this is where it gets really fascinating. AI-powered code rewriting.
This is genuinely the stuff of cyberfuturism.
Okay.
Google identified this experimental malware. They're calling it PROMPTFLUX.
Okay.
The code has a hard-coded Gemini AI API key, and it queries the language model hourly, asking it to perform code obfuscation.
Wait. The malware itself asks an LLM to rewrite and obscure its own code every hour.
Every single hour, specifically for antivirus evasion.
Yeah.
It makes traditional static analysis practically impossible.
That's incredible.
That's the core innovation. It's believed to be a financially motivated actor, and the malware even logs the AI's responses through a feature it calls the thinking robot.
So while it's experimental now, this capability for malware to just dynamically change itself to bypass security, that's a game changer.
Total game changer. And we're seeing that creativity in how they hide their communications, too.
Right. Gone are the days of just obvious command and control channels. Now they're hiding in legitimate cloud traffic.
The SesameOp backdoor is a perfect example of this. It actually leverages the OpenAI Assistants API itself as a covert C2 channel.
So it embeds its instructions within normal API calls.
Exactly. The command traffic just blends in perfectly with standard, harmless cloud activity. It makes it extremely difficult for any network monitoring to flag it.
And if they can't hide the code, they're hiding their behavior. Let's talk about that Herodotus Android malware, the human mimicking stuff.
Right, Herodotus. It's sold as Malware-as-a-Service, and its unique feature is this randomized delay.
The delay.
Yeah, anywhere from 0.3 to 3 seconds when it types input. It's explicitly designed to mimic human friction, to evade those behavioral detection systems that look for instant machine-like typing.
And its purpose is just
Stealing banking and crypto credentials through custom interface overlays. Simple as that.
that level of detail, building in those little micro jitters, it shows how focused they are. But if we connect this to the bigger systemic picture, you argue that complexity itself is starting to work against security teams.
I do. The data shows organizations with really complex security architectures are often more, not less, vulnerable.
But isn't that complexity often required for, compliance and things like that? How do you balance that?
That is the essential challenge. We've found that organizations relying on tools like Cisco or Citrix VPNs are nearly 7 times more likely to get hit with a ransomware attack.
7 times?
Yeah, and this isn't a knock on the vendors, it's just a reflection of how incredibly difficult it is to properly secure these complex on-prem VPNs. There are just too many places for attackers to find a crack.
So simplicity, when it's secured right, often wins.
It often does. And yet, despite all this new complexity, the oldest, simplest vectors, they still dominate.
Oh, absolutely. The latest report from AWS confirms it. Nearly 80% of organizations they surveyed had a data breach in the past year.
And the top culprits.
You guessed it. Compromised credentials and misconfigurations. This is what led to that huge Hyundai Auto Ever America breach. They exposed super sensitive PII. We're talking social security numbers, driver's licenses.
And that target isn't just human users anymore, is it?
No. The predicted shift is aggressive. Attackers are going after non-human identities.
Things like system accounts, service principals.
Exactly. And those are so often just protected by single-factor authentication. That blind spot is maybe the biggest risk area for a lot of companies right now.
So if credentials are the main gateway, then ignoring known vulnerabilities is like leaving the front door unlocked with the lights on for years.
That's a perfect analogy. Australia's warning about bad candy infections drives this home. They found over 400 unpatched Cisco iOS XE devices compromised.
And this wasn't some new zero-day attack.
Not at all. They were exploiting a critical vulnerability, CVE 2023-2198, that is 2 years old.
A 2-year-old flaw. Being used by sophisticated actors like Salt Typhoon to get persistent access. The patch is there, but the discipline to deploy it.
It's often not. So, given these two very different fronts, the basic failures and the advanced AI threats, what are the strategic lessons? Where should teams be focusing right now?
Well, Mandiant offers a really solid 3-pillar approach for one of the most critical areas. Privileged account monitoring, or PM.
The keys to the kingdom. If we could just enforce one thing, it would be tightening access there.
Right. They break it into prevention, detection, and response. Prevention is about rigorously tiering access. Detection is about tuning your monitoring to spot abuse. And response.
Customizing your incident plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those break glass accounts can be isolated and audited instantly.
That focus on tiering access is non-negotiable. And we should also talk about cloud credential hygiene, specifically OAuth device code phishing, because there's a huge difference between how Azure and Google handle it.
Oh, this contrast is essential for you to understand. With this type of phishing, a user is tricked into entering a code from an attacker's screen. Microsoft Azure's setup allows attackers to request really powerful permissions.
Like primary refresh tokens.
Exactly, which gives them persistent multi-session access to the account. It's incredibly dangerous.
And Google's approach is different.
Far more restrictive. They limit the device code flow almost entirely to benign things like Google Drive or YouTube access. So the critical takeaway, if you use Azure, is you need to implement conditional access policies to restrict that device code flow. Because the default behavior enables some really effective phishing campaigns.
Okay, finally, let's touch on the organizational failures behind the technical ones, because security is ultimately a leadership challenge.
It absolutely is. Effective security leaders need to stop being just advanced IT managers and start being executives.
Meaning
Focusing on high-level strategy, communicating risk in business terms, and managing expectations from the C-suite. You have to act like an executive who understands the bottom lines. There's a key part of what we talk about here on Vocal Technologists.
Right. And speaking of that executive reality, there's a really fascinating and kind of sobering finding about what gets left out of public incident reports.
It's a systemic problem. We found that public reports almost never mention high staff attrition as a contributing factor.
Well, yeah.
To reassure customers, basically.
Yeah.
To say the technical issue is fixed and to minimize liability.
So the internal analysis might show that high turnover increases the risk of system failure because experienced people leave, controls get forgotten.
Ah,
But that stressor never makes it into the public report. They just focus on the specific technical bug.
which creates a dangerous cycle where we only treat the symptom, right?
Hmm.
We miss the root organizational cause. So the takeaway for you, the listener, is if your team sees high churn, your security risk is intrinsically higher, period.
So if we synthesize all of this, the cybersecurity field right now is fighting this polarized war.
Yeah, on one hand, you have the relentless high-volume battle against massive scaled-up misconfigurations.
And on the other, this nuanced high-stakes chess match against AI-driven, hyper-obfuscated attacks.
The tactical priorities are clear, though. You need to review your cloud configs, enforce mandatory phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, and tighten up that privileged access.
But let's leave you with one final provocative thought. It really illustrates the difficult business side of risk. We look at internal documents that predicted Meta would earn about 10% of its annual revenue. That's roughly $16 billion from fraudulent ads.
And the reason is their automated system only bans an advertiser if it's 95% certain the ads are malicious. If it's only, say, 94% certain.
They just charge the advertiser a higher rate.
Right. So the fundamental question this raises for all of us is this. What does it mean for platform safety when the economics of that platform prioritize maximizing profit over having absolute certainty that the content is safe?
A truly sobering note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the newest threats and strategies.
We'll catch you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.